Wasabi wallet. Unfairly private.
What's up, everyone? Ben with the BTC Sessions here, and this is your daily session.
Hodl the Bitcoin.
Before we jump in, of course, a couple quick things before we get going here. Of course, shout out to sponsors of the show, Ledn.io. This is where you can use your Bitcoin for a few different services. First of which is a Bitcoin savings account where you can earn Bitcoin on your Bitcoin paid in Bitcoin. You can also check out their Bitcoin-backed loans. This is where you can use your Bitcoin as collateral to secure a Canadian or US dollar loan. So if you need dollars but you don't want to sell your Bitcoin because you're worried about price appreciation, that could be a solution for you. And finally, their B2X or Buy 2X product. And that's where if you're a huge Bitcoin bull, you can get double the exposure to Bitcoin with basically the same as purchasing a single Bitcoin. You could get exposure to 2X the price movement. So if you want to check those out, links are down below. If you opt to get a Bitcoin-backed loan, they will actually credit your account with an additional $50 worth of Bitcoin. And of course, if you're into Bitcoin, then privacy is an important point. One of the things that I use all the time to help me out with that is NordVPN. I have this on my phone and my computer running all the time. And essentially what it does is it hides your IP address, it encrypts your browsing data, and it has a whole bunch of other benefits, including unlocking geo-block content. So if you want to access something and you're in a country where that's not accessible, well, you can just change your country of origin in the application and that's taken care of for you. So if you click the link down below, then they have a special deal where you can get it for just a few bucks a month. With that, let's dive into the news. And so the first thing I wanted to talk about today was I was actually on a local radio show, Global News Radio, with Danielle Smith this morning. And so I've been on there a few times before, and the topic today was around CBDCs, which are central bank digital currencies, something we've talked about here before, Facebook's Libra project, and how they stack up against Bitcoin. Now, what I love about Danielle is she is a very smart individual that has really started to understand the difference that Bitcoin offers in the face of a lot of these more centralized solutions, and how some of these solutions, like central bank digital currencies, maybe don't solve much of anything that really needed to be solved in the first place. So what I want to talk about here is it kind of seems to me like after Libra, after Facebook announced that they want to make their own digital currency, which really it was just a basket of fiat currencies which are stored throughout the globe in different places, which introduces counterparty risk in itself. But besides the fact, it was a free-floating currency backed by various assets, and that worried central banks because they saw that as losing their, I guess, monopolistic powers of the issuance of money. And so now we have an instance where governments around the world are kind of rushing to dive in and create their own digital currency. So we see IBM did a little study here, and they said that central banks will launch digital currencies within 5 years. And they cite a number of reasons, but one of the things they talk about is the declining use of cash, the increasing usage of e-wallets, digital wallets, whether it be for fiat or for cryptocurrencies. And they see this as a reason why central banks are diving in. You also see stuff like China saying that they could be launching their CBDC as soon as early 2020, so in the next few months, if some of the rumors are true. And so what does this mean? Well, like I said on my interview earlier today, which again you can check out, the links will be down below for that, but I said that a lot of the time the devil is in the details. And when it comes to a situation like China, there's been rumblings of them potentially backing it by gold. That's kind of unsubstantiated at this point, but even if they did, it once again doesn't address the issues that cause the dissolution of the gold standard in the first place, which were, I'd say, human complacency and a lack of auditability. If China says that the gold is there and is backing the currency, there's no real way for individuals like you and I, or say other Chinese citizens or people around the globe, to actually verify in real time if that is true, and therefore there is counterparty risk associated with that. And as we've learned, governments and individuals are not great when it comes to resisting the urge to inflate currency. Now, the other aspect of this, which this CoinDesk article talks about, is what does this mean for the privacy of users of this potential CBDC? And there was a central bank official that was quoted as saying, "We know the demand from the general public is to keep anonymity by using paper money and coins. We will give those people who demand it anonymity in their transactions," when referring to the CBDC. However, he goes on to say, "But at the same time, we will keep the balance between the controllable anonymity and anti-money laundering, CTF, which is counter-terrorist financing, and also tax issues, online gambling, and any electronic criminal activities." And so my question, my main takeaway from this quote here is, he's saying that they're going to allow for anonymity of transactions for people that want it. And if that's true, how can they purport to be doing that while at the same time trying to prevent money laundering and counter-terrorist financing and tax and online gambling and electronic criminal activities? Those things, in my eyes, tend to be mutually exclusive. If you're allowed to transact anonymously, you get the good with the bad. Or if you opt to not give anonymity, then you're going to be throwing the baby out with the bathwater. You're going to be capturing not only criminals, but every innocent person that just wants to transact freely. And especially in a place like China, where they are notorious for cracking down on dissenters, this could be a very dangerous recipe. So what I mean by this is, right now we've already seen crackdowns of things like WeChat and Alipay, where if somebody says something unfavorable about the government or is associated, even like just mildly associated with somebody who breaks the law, they can essentially have their economic freedom completely restricted. They could be cut from the grid. They're not allowed to transact. They have to deal in cash, and good luck getting a bank account. You can even have your travel restricted with this. And so when you have something like China, who is experimenting with social credit scores and how favorable you are to the government, paired with a centrally controlled digital currency, you could get into a situation where if you say something bad about the government, you wake up and find you just have no money, because it's all centrally controlled. So I'm very pessimistic when it comes to stuff like this. I would say that China is a more extreme case, and that a lot of Western central bank digital currencies would be a toned down version of this, but still in general probably not super favorable. And I don't think it would have in the long term any real benefit to you or I. When it comes transactionally, people say, oh, this will expedite transactions for regular people. But will it really? We've already got debit cards and credit cards that you can tap. You've already got email e-transfers and online transfers with PayPal and things like that. So transactionally, we seem to be doing fine. Speed of transaction isn't an issue unless maybe you're talking about internationally. But to me, I don't think that the CBDCs are really going to be solving anything for the average person on the street. Maybe they might help with interbank settlements a little bit quicker, but Yeah, I don't know. It's nothing that couldn't be just done on a database, which seems like that will probably be really the case. A lot of people quote blockchain technology, but it sounds like more or less it's just going to be a centrally controlled database by a central bank. Anyways, let's move on. Also in the realm of banking. So Canada's largest bank here is mulling the idea of having a crypto exchange after they themselves banned their own users from utilizing their debit cards and credit cards to buy digital currency, which is very, very it's a tad ridiculous in my eyes. It almost seems very anti-competitive, right? So what have this is RBC Bank by the way, Royal Bank. So back in the day, I'm not sure how long ago this was, but they restricted people from buying Bitcoin. Essentially, if they caught on to it, then they would restrict you from doing it. So this was the notice that they issued back then. Effective immediately, RBC will no longer be allowing the use of RBC credit cards for transactions involving cryptocurrency. We regret any inconvenience this may cause. And that was pretty much it. Other banks did the same, TD, Bank of Montreal, and a lot of this was in relation to, I would say, anti-competitive behavior, but also quoted was just the safety of things like Quadriga, which was a Canadian exchange that imploded, and more recently, Einstein Exchange being seized by the BC Securities Commission. Also not a great look, but either way, RBC is now looking at having a multifunctional exchange. So what they would be doing is allowing a trading platform to facilitate buying and selling of individual digital coins, including Bitcoin and Ethereum, as well as the transfer of funds combining different types of cryptocurrencies. So it sounds like after having restricted people being able to go on to other platforms and freely buy and sell cryptocurrencies, they're going to get into the game themselves and sell them themselves if this report turns out to be true, which is very hypocritical in my eyes. Now, what does this do to the rest of the industry? I don't know. How complacent are people? I would take this report with a little bit of a grain of salt initially, but we'll see how this impacts things. Again, it comes across quite hypocritical to me. I don't know how quickly they can move on something like this. And realistically, if they offer custody, they're going to run into the exact same issues because now they're dealing with an asset that they can't readily type into existence. So they can't loan out Bitcoin that isn't existing there. And that's quite a different case than issuing a loan to somebody's bank account, which you can then withdraw in the form of cash. Well, Bitcoin, there is actually that finite supply and is digitally auditable. So I would posit that this kind of thing is a bit of a Trojan horse into the banking system. If you get large banks like this starting to offer custody and other financial products, then some of those bad practices that banks are used to being able to just kind of paper over may not hold up, and they're going to find that it could be quite difficult in the future. But hey, we'll see how it pans out. Best of luck to RBC, I suppose. Moving on, a couple things in relation to retail and the integration of Bitcoin there. I'm not necessarily talking about making purchases with Bitcoin. That has kind of been tried previously as a method of expediting adoption, and I would say failed pretty spectacularly, because the issue with that is, as a merchant, if you say, I want to accept Bitcoin, and because I'm accepting it as payment, people will pay with it, it's kind of counterintuitive, because why would an individual that's not currently involved in Bitcoin, seeing you accepting Bitcoin, say, well, I could pay with my dollars that I have, but I'm going to go out, I'm going to actively buy another currency so that I can then pay with that currency at this vendor. it is pretty counterintuitive. So there's been this push now. Well, maybe what we could do is we could capitalize on the idea of rewards points, and instead of giving something like air miles, we literally just give Satoshis. We give little pieces of Bitcoin to those that are shopping at certain merchants. And so this is what both Lolli and Fold app have been working on. So Lolli is only available to those in the US, but they've just recently partnered with Alibaba to allow people to earn 5% back in Bitcoin on their purchases, specifically those in the US. Now, Alibaba is one of the largest online retailers, and actually this was released on November 11th, which is a shopping holiday in China called Singles Day. And in last year, for just so you kind of can gauge it, but Alibaba shoppers spent around $31 billion on Singles Day alone. So that's a lot of potential Bitcoin that people could have earned on that $31 billion spent. I love the idea of rewards programs paid out in Bitcoin because it gives people exposure to a real world asset that they could potentially withdraw and spend elsewhere. But they can also see over time, if they hold on to those points, as many do, many people rack up points over years. And with the trajectory of Bitcoin's price in the long term, it could turn a lot of people onto the idea of Bitcoin, sound money, and they start asking the questions as to why is the value of my points fluctuating. And I like that idea. I like just kind of nudging people down the rabbit hole by getting them to spend their dollars and stack their sats. And now another announcement here was with AirBNB and Fold app, the one I referred to before. Now Fold app is available on iPhone and Android. It is a web app which you can access currently, but they do have an application which is in closed beta right now. I got access to it. I love it. I was using Fold app back in the day in 2014 to use Bitcoin to purchase Starbucks coffee. Unfortunately, looking back, there were many multi-$100 lattes that I enjoyed. And so now I'm trying to reverse that a little bit, and I now actively, when I want to buy Starbucks, I will buy it like a gift card via the Fold app with dollars via my credit card. But in the process, I get rewards back in sats. So I get to stack some Bitcoin while I'm spending my dollars, and I love that. Well, they just paired up with Airbnb now, and so now when you're buying Airbnb gift cards and booking that way, well, you can get, what is it, 3% back in Bitcoin on every stay and experience booked through that website using the gift card that you purchased through Fold. So I think that is great. You can also pay via Lightning Network, via Bitcoin, when purchasing these, and get a larger amount of sats back in many cases. For me, that's not how I utilize it because I worry about losing that extra few percent just in trying to go through and purchase Bitcoin to re-top up my balance, because I would want to spend and then immediately replace as well as reap the benefits of the rewards. But I worry that in doing so, I'm going to be losing some in a spread somewhere and just not realize it. So yeah, I spend my dollars and I stack my sats. But I encourage you guys to check it out. If you're in the States, what do you think of Lolli? Because I don't have access to it here in Canada yet. I know they are planning on going international over time, but not yet. So let me know, how is it? How's Lolli? And let me know if you're using Fold app as well. And last thing I wanted to touch on, just a couple funny tweets I saw today. And they're very, very polar opposite of each other. So I saw this one, a lot of people on Bitcoin Twitter sharing it around, from Jessica Huseman. And so who is she? She covers elections. She's kind of like a political commentator. And she's a pretty intelligent person, but maybe not as much when it comes to Bitcoin. So here's her tweet. All I'm saying, ladies, is that if he brings up Bitcoin or blockchain unprompted in the first date, there shouldn't be a second. And there were, of course, a lot a lot of Bitcoiners that commented on that. I like Zach Bull, your loss. But then we have Emily, or Crypto Emmy, and she said, what if I told you about Bitcoin on a first date? Would you come for a second? And there were plenty of people that were much more favorable to that tweet than the former. I mean, obviously these are just throwaway fun tweets, whatever. But yeah, I don't know. If you're going to shit on somebody or not be interested in somebody for talking about something that they're very passionate about, then again, to quote Zach there, I guess your loss. But anyways, curious for you guys, have you had any dates where this came up? Did it torpedo the date, or was it an actual interesting conversation? I'm very lucky that my wife is very receptive to a lot of this stuff and will engage me in conversation, even if she can get tired of it from time to time. I also like how much she has picked up, and I'll have conversations and I'll be like, oh, you got to hear this stupid thing that happened. And I'll start to explain it. And she'll actually catch on to why I thought something was ridiculous. She understands kind of the value proposition of Bitcoin, and I love her for it. So anyways, guys, I'm going to wrap it there. Thank you so much for watching. Of course, always hit like, subscribe, and share, especially share. Get some more eyeballs on these videos. If you want to help out the show, you can hit up the sponsors at the links down below. That is Ledn and Nord. And of course, check out Wasabi Wallet. I have a tutorial on that listed down below as well. It's always great to add privacy and put a break of that link between you and your coins. You never know what kind of prying eyes could be looking at those. And if you really like what you saw, of course, drop me a Bitcoin tip via the Lightning Network at my tipin.me page. With that, I am out. Have a wonderful rest of your evening, and I will see you tomorrow for your daily session.